Judging the author's soundness. The first three remarks are somewhat different from the fourth, as we will presently see. Let us consider each of them briefly and then turn to the fourth. To say that an author is uninformed is to say that he lacks some piece of knowledge that is relevant to the problem he is trying to solve. To say that author lacks knowledge is to say that the author is uninformed is to say that he lacks some piece of knowledge that is to relevant relevant relevant
relevant,
relevant relevant is relevant
relevant,
relevant
relevant,
relevant. His problem that he lacks some of some piece of knowledge that is relevant. He lacks lack
lack,
lacks he lacks some piece of knowledge that is relevant to the problem relevant to the problem he is trying to solve. Notice here that unless the knowledge, if possessed by the author, would have been relevant, unless the knowledge, if possessed by the author, would have been relevant, there is no point in making this remark. To support the remark, you must be able to state the knowledge that the other author lacks and show how it's relevant, how it makes difference to his conclusions. To say that the author is uninformed is to say that he lacks some of the key, some piece of knowledge that is relevant to the problem he's trying to solve. Notice that unless the knowledge, notice here that unless the knowledge, if if possessed by the author would have been relevant, that the unless the knowledge, if possessed by the author, would have been relevant, there is no point in making this remark. Notice here, unless the knowledge, if possessed by the author, would have been relevant, we think that is relevant if we are telling him it's uninformed because he lacks piece of information, piece of knowledge that is relevant to the problem he's solving, he's trying to solve, unless the knowledge is possessed by the knowledge would have been relevant, there is no point in making remark. To support the mere remark, you must be able to state the knowledge that the author lacks and show how it is relevant, how it makes difference to his conclusions. A few illustrations here must suffice. Darwin lacked the knowledge of genetics that the work of Mendel and later experimentalist now provides. A few illustration here would suffice, must suffice. A few illustration here must suffice. Darwin lacked the knowledge of genetics that the work of Mendel and later experimentalists now provides. He lacked the knowledge of genetics that the work of Mendel and later experimentalists now provide. His ignorance of the mechanism of inheritance is one of the major defects in the origin of species. His ignorance of mechanism of inheritance. His ignorance of mechanism of inheritance is one of the major defects in the origin of species. Gibbon lacked certain facts that later historical research has shown to have bearing on the fall of Rome. Gibbon lacked certain facts that later historical research has shown to have a bearing on the fall of Rome. Usually, in science and history, the lack of information is discovered by later researchers. Improved techniques of observation and prolonged investigation make this the way things happen for the most part. But in philosophy, it may happen otherwise. There is just as likely to be loss as gain. There is just a likely to be loss as gain with the passage of. There is just likely to a loss, likely to be like there's just likely to be loss as gain with the passage of time. Ancient, for example, clearly distinguished between what men can sense, imagine, and can understand. Yet, in the 18th century, David Hume revealed his ignorance of this distinction between images and ideas, even though it had been so well established by the work of earlier philosophers. To say that an author is misinformed, uninformed, misinformed, is to say that he asserts what is not the case. To say the author is misinformed is to say what he asserts what is not the case. His error here may be owing to lack of knowledge. His error here may be owing to lack of knowledge, but the error is more than that. Whatever its cause, it consists in making assertions contrary to fact. The author is proposing as a true or more probable what is a fact, false, or less probable. He is claiming to have a knowledge he does not possess. This kind of defect should be pointed out, of course, only if it is relevant to the author's conclusions. And to support the remark, you must be able to argue the truth or greater probability of position contrary to the author's. For example, in one of his political treatises, Spinoza appears to say that democracy is more primitive type of government than monarchy. We'll come back to this tomorrow.